SSPC has their QP program. So looking at ways to bring the best of both of those together. Education, certainly some program overlap in the coatings space. SSPC has programs that NACE does not have, specific in the coatings arena. There's some overlap where there are similar programs. And then NACE has a whole catalog of non-coding related courses. And all of these have to come together into how we're going to run education in the future. And we identified throughout this process that there is the need for a pre-professional and early career focused activity. And this is to develop what that might look like from early STEM engagement through university scholarships or through university engagement. And perhaps that's one path. There's also apprentice type programs that aren't necessarily tied to university programs that allow people to enter the workforce and earn certification and have a successful career path plotted through NACE and SSPC, what the combined organization will look like. We have a group on conferences and events. Both organizations run conferences and different events. So how do we harmonize and bring those together and look for the right synergies and the planning? Of course, this year has been an especially stressful year for the conference and events team, dealing with how the pandemic has moved across the globe and impacted the ability to have face-to-face events. So they have an added burden of understanding how to do remote conferences and events successfully. The next two are kind of back office pieces, but very important, how we're going to bring the finances and accounting of the new organization together. Different ways, different bookkeeping, different ways of accounting, just different scope and scale between the two organizations as well. So doing that right. And the IT infrastructure is the backbone of how the two organizations operate, and it also includes the customer-facing, or in this case, membership-facing programs, applications that exist today or might exist in the future. The staff engagement team, which doesn't have any members involved, is aimed at developing the structure and plans for integrating the staff. We've got a global footprint of staff with two big centers in Pittsburgh and Houston, and determining how best to integrate those roles and teams is a big piece of the puzzle for the new organization. And the last team that's on here is that is up and running today is the branding team. And that's to support the brand development process, come up with what our visual identity is going to be and how we're going to appear in the market. And we'll spend more time on the brand integration team and share with you what they've been up to and where they're headed in the near term. So activities that have been completed, the branding integration team reviewed proposals from, I think, 5 or 6 different agencies, narrowed that list down to 3 to have detailed face-to-face meetings, and selected one organization, Beyond Definition, has been signed as the creative agency to help us through this process. They've had a kickoff meeting. Beyond Definition has performed some detailed interviews with 15 members from each organization, and then they sent a survey to a wide variety of individuals associated with each organization. have about a 1% response rate back from the surveys. So notionally 1,500 to 2,000 responses back, which is pretty reasonable for that type of survey. So certainly trying to make effort to get feedback and input from our membership and some of our external stakeholders to make sure we take that into account as we're developing the new brand. They've also looked at the existing materials that NACE and SSPC have, and they held a branding workshop with the brand team and representatives from Beyond Definition. So this month we expect a report on kind of the last 3 or 4 bullets that are in the what's been completed bucket, and the brand team will be reviewing those and making some decisions or providing some feedback to the transition team as we go forward. And in the near future is developing the items that are listed in the future slides. So we hope to have all of this in place over the next, some in the next 30 days, some in the next 60, some in the next 90 days. So working diligently to make sure we have a brand in place for when we launch the new organization. And this type of report is what each of the integration teams shares with the transition team on a rotating basis, but we hear from all of the teams essentially every 6 weeks. And then if there's ad hoc or specific requests from a team that's not in that rotation with the transition team, we certainly take that in kind of any other business aspect of those routine meetings. So we're trying to get constant feedback and share feedback both directions with the teams and make sure that we're making good progress. And if breaking down barriers is a problem, we certainly work to try and do that as well. The legal team also made some great progress. We coordinated with the governance team and the transition team to develop and approve articles of incorporation and bylaws. We drafted and executed what is called the definitive agreement, essentially the contract that says we're going to go forward and do this. In that contract, the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, and a whole slew of exhibits were required to be submitted to the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General for approval. So SSPC is organized or incorporated in Pennsylvania, and their rules for nonprofits. The Attorney General wants to make sure that nonprofit societies, organizations are dealt with appropriately, that they're not being created or disbanded in a nonchalant fashion. So making sure that nonprofits are treated appropriately is in the purview of Pennsylvania Attorney General. And we're waiting on that approval. I think notionally towards the end of October or beginning of October is when we expect to have a response from the Attorney General. Looking forward and give a window here of the next 30 days because we've scheduled out town halls roughly every month. It might be 5 weeks between this one and the next one, but notionally in the span between this town hall and the next town hall. We expect the integration teams to continue their research and discussions. They continue to report progress with the integration team. And if there are things that need to be approved, the integration team will take action. If there are challenges or risks to the delivery, we'll work through what the right approach is to keep things moving forward. The legal team, as I suggested, waiting on the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. If there's questions or we need to respond in the interim, they'll do that. And we also need to define the wind down actions for each organization, such that when we get to the end of the year and ready to stand up the new organization, the existing organizations are dealt with appropriately in the legal world. We've defined, I know it's been a while since our last town hall in May. We've defined future town hall schedules, so that will be easier for folks to keep check on how progress is going. We're using social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, and others to inform folks when there is information that is worth reviewing or updates to progress. We'll share with you an email address. You can always reach out to the team and ask questions or share feedback or seek when the next update is going to be. And we have dedicated websites on both, or web pages on both organizations' websites that keep a running list of FAQ questions and press releases and access to these webinars as well, or links to these webinars, the recorded sessions. So the future town halls scheduled for September 2nd, these QR codes on the left will take you to the Zoom registration page for those specific town halls. We have one scheduled for September and October. We plan to do one in November, just finalizing the dates, be around mid-November, and one scheduled in December. We may add to this list, but we'll try to keep to this list as a minimum. The QR codes on, those QR codes on the left are for the town halls. QR codes on the right will take you to the NACE webpage or SSPC webpage where the updates are being posted, where you can type in that address, or you can search from the web pages, the home page as well. And I think that brings us to the question and answer period. The email address, if you have questions that come up in between the town halls, certainly encourage you to submit those or feedback along the way from what you hear. They are read and reviewed, and we will respond to them. So with that, see, we've got some other folks from the steering team that are on the call. I'll just kind of throw it open to Bob, Bill, if I missed anything that you think is important to include.
And I've got some questions for you in the chat. So let me just see if we can pull those up for you. All right. Will we be sending out an email registration for future town halls? Yes, we will. You should be getting those in your email. They'll also be available on our website. I'll just answer that one. And Tim, the next one is, what does the transition stage look like for members and companies, and when does it start?
It's a great question. I assume this relates to individuals that are renewing under one or both organizations, or if a company were to renew a corporate type membership under one or both of the organizations. That is a topic that is being actively discussed at the moment inside of membership and inside of the transition team. We need to be able to identify what that transition looks like. What I can say is we will be So I'm a member. I also work for a company that's a member, and I want to make sure that both the individual and the corporate members are treated fairly. If somebody, as an example, if somebody were to renew and then 30 days later we change the whole program, we would look to protect or extend that type of renewal such that we're not adding to the burden of cost and dual memberships longer than we need to have.
Okay. Bob, do you want to try now? I think it looks like you're unmuted.
No, I'm good. I was just, he had asked if we had anything to say, and I did not have anything more to add. So
Okay.
We're good.
All right. I have some questions that came through directly to me by email during this, so I'm just going to read those to you. They're not in the chat. One question is, will standards be standardized? Will they be kept valid, and will there be kind of new combined standards is the gist of the question.
Yeah, the standards team is trying to work through those that very question. So currently there are some standards that are co-branded between NACE and SSPC. There are also standards from both organizations that are, let's say, defined or referenced in internal company processes and standards, or even external regulatory processes or regulations. So to change those quickly and without careful consideration just on the naming convention and structure, we're not doing that. I think what the group is trying to tackle at the moment is how do standards get authored, balloted, and approved. But we will be tackling the other issue about how do we, when we bring that common process together, over time, I can see that we might phase standards together and not have individual standards. But that's a process that would have a timeline associated with it, and I don't think it will be like a light switch where we would turn it on fast.
Tim, this is Bob. Just to add to that, one of the challenges we face with standards is many of our standards are either referenced in regulations or in company policies by the title, either SSPC or NACE, and then whatever number letter after them. So we've got to be careful about all of that, recognizing we don't want to, because of a name change, disqualify a standard. So we've got to just be really careful about how we make that all happen.
And then the next question we have is, when will the process be complete for both organizations as a legal entity for registrations in local sections?
Elisa, this is Bob. I'll grab that one. Just to walk through the timing. So the next step from a legal standpoint is approval of the Pennsylvania Attorney General of the merger. We don't see any issue there. We expect that to happen. And that's needed because SSPC is incorporated in Pennsylvania. We expect that in the September-October timeframe. And then we expect to form the legal entity, new entity of New Org, whatever it's called, by January. Once we have that done, we'll be able to start the process on the local level, and our global team will be working with you. I think that came from Elvis in the Middle East. Elvis will be working with Gossam and others in the Middle East and our teams around the world to move each of those entities into place and get them set up. In the meantime, we will also maintain the existing structure so that we don't leave anybody hanging in the process.
Okay. And now we have a certification question. If you have a coding inspection level 1 certification through NACE, how will the certification coincide with SSPC?
Again, that's what the certification team is being tasked with doing, is how do we bring the best of each of those programs together, and how will we transition to what the new scheme will look like. And both of those certifications may appear or may continue for a period of time as we work through that. Again, none of these decisions that we've been talking about to date are like light switches, right? They're more like dimmer switches. You have to turn down one as you turn up the other. They're not, it's not binary on or off. So we recognize people that have certifications, that have made investments and or derive income from having those certifications. We want to ensure that we're doing the minimal disruption that we can and protect those certification schemes as we go forward.
Okay. And just before I go to the next one, a follow-up to that one was via email, was when will the changes take effect for certifications?
I think, again, all of these teams have just started over the past 4 weeks, have started meeting, started getting familiar with the strengths, perhaps opportunities with each other's programs, and are looking at how they will blend them going forward. I expect in the future town halls, we will be able to share progress from some of these other teams. Today we spoke about branding. They had the earliest start, but as we go through the next several town halls, I expect we'll have more details and granularity, I guess, for folks that are interested in how it affects them, which is certainly understand it affects me as well. So we want to make sure that we're doing it in a thoughtful fashion that maintains both the brand and the investment that folks have made.
Sure. And then someone inquired about paying dues. Will it be one combined, dues, or will they have to pay to both organizations? So one or two.
I'll let Bob take that one.
Yeah, it will eventually be one dues that you'll pay, and that's being worked on. They've got a proposal that's being prepared. We should have something in the next several, I'll say couple months, to get that put together. There's a process that we are going through with all of these changes for approval that is made of the working through the teams and making sure that we're looking at all aspects of anything that we do. So there is the work of the ad hoc teams to create the proposals, but then they go through a very extensive vetting process to make sure that they are the right proposals. So there is a time that it's going to take to get to some of the decisions on these. And that's one that it's at the forefront of our work. It's one of the early things we're working on, but there's still an approval process we have to go through. I saw that somebody said, I hope the dues are not cost prohibitive to single consultant organizations. We do have very much have a plan to assure that there is different options for both individuals and companies to gain the benefits. And we're also being very sensitive to what the current structure is for both SSPC and NACE, and making sure we put something together that I believe would be acceptable no matter what size of a company you are or whether you're an individual member, and hopefully with enough variability or options that no matter what your needs are, because that's the one thing we found in our research is there's a multitude of reasons why both individuals and companies engage with us. And so you can't just design one benefit model. There's got to be multiple.
Okay. Let me just pull, there was a question that came in that I missed here. It was as an international member from our SSPC Columbia chapter, we'd like to cooperate more actively during the merge process. Please let us know what is the most effective way to do so.
Elise, I'll grab that one as well. So what we're encouraging for now, because we are still working on what the local organization, the chapter sections, what that model will look like. I'm calling them local communities because we probably will not use either the term chapter or sections in the future. That work's still being done, but there is absolutely no reason why you cannot reach out to your peer. The person that asked said they were SSPC related. Reach out to your NACE counterpart, have a joint activity, a joint meeting. We're encouraging that, and that is starting to happen in different places. This is the time to get to know each other and understand what you're doing locally, hopefully find opportunities for synergy and being able to work together. But I think that's an important first step is taking the time to get to know each other and engage. And then from there, over time, we'll have more direction specifically on what the structure will be and the tools and everything that you need. Well, a good first step is to have a joint SSPC NACE section meeting or chapter meeting in your local area, or a luncheon or golf outing or something that brings your people together locally.
And then, Tim, this one, I think we have a slide for someone's asking if we can disclose the voting results from the from way back when. So if you, I think that was slide 4 or 5. And while we're pulling, oh, here we go. So for
yeah, these so these results were shared in the previous town hall as well. These two snippets, one comes from the SSPC side, the other one comes from the NACE side. So the aggregate number there is 10,000 individuals voted, round numbers, and it's, I think, 88 or 89% if you did the math. So I did take some liberty and rounded that to 90, 9 out of 10. But those are the results that were.
Thanks. Next question is, would the certifications potentially be reissued under the new branding and legal identity or entity?
I would say eventually, yes, they will be reissued under the new branding. Exactly how, that's still to be determined. But again, we have the same issue with certification that I mentioned with standards, that those certifications are often referenced by the name, either NACE or SSPC, and we don't want to lose that. So we'll be working on a strategy for the naming of certification.
Okay. And then the next question is the plan to still have a physical presence in both Houston and Pittsburgh, any other locations? So
yes, the plan is to continue to keep both locations. That hasn't wavered from the beginning, both headquarter locations. In fact, even with COVID-19, I had the opportunity, this is Bob Chalker speaking, I had the opportunity to get to Pittsburgh to visit their facilities. So got to spend a little bit of time with a few staff members in the lockdown. Properly socially distancing. Beyond those two facilities, NACE actually has several offices around the world, and even in the US. We have a small publishing office in San Diego that's responsible for our magazines. And then we have offices in China, Brazil, the UK, I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but anyways, we have
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, thank you. And we have a training center in the UAE. So yes, there are multiple facilities, and right now we plan on maintaining all of those. And in fact, potentially expanding. One of the values of the merger is the synergy that we gain being able to effectively use our resources. And we do recognize the value of having feet on the ground in regions, particularly where we have a large number of members and activities. So I could see us beginning to expand our location.
Okay. And then this is SSPC and NACE are great brand names in each area, coatings and corrosion cathodic protection respectively. I believe the integration team will keep this in mind, but just out of curiosity, will you consider to keep both? It would be very hard either way.
Well, we're certainly, I think, consider, yes, that's part of the work that the branding team and our branding agency is working through with us. It is possible, and I think the analogy that has been used before is you could have, if you thought about a hotel chain like Marriott, it has a lot of brands that sit beneath Marriott, Spring Hill Suites, JW Marriott, Fairfield. So you could still see a new organization name and brands that sit beneath that organization. There is tremendous brand equity in both of them, and we would not want to lose that going forward.
Okay, next question is, how many individuals and companies are members of both organizations?
That is a great question. It's a moving target, you know, because people renew and come and go monthly. I'd say in round numbers, it's 36,000 members for NACE. I'll look if Bob has to chastise me. And I don't know the number of corporate level companies that have signed up for the various corporate. And I guess, Bill, if you can speak to SSPC.
Sure. Roughly from SSPC, individual members, we have a little over 10,000 and corporate members over 900.
Bob, any better numbers for NACE than?
We're right about that 900 mark.
Okay.
Okay, and then someone is wondering when the major can we share when the major milestones of the integration plan are to happen?
Well, I think the next major milestones, probably the biggest milestone that is out there looming is the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General's ruling or approval of how we're going to move forward. That would be a big milestone. We expect that in the early October timeframe. However, they're operating under different rules now with COVID-19. We're operating differently than how we might have operated in the past. So we recognize that there's a little subjectivity or a little window around when we expect that answer. Each of the teams have different milestones, and what I'd say is the best way to report that is through these town halls, where we can dive a bit deeper into which teams have accomplished, or we're ready to report where we're headed with the individual subject matter.
And I have an inquiry. I think the gist is they're wondering if we will continue to have individual memberships.
Definitely, yes. We are still both individual membership organizations, and that would continue into the future.
All right. I guess if there's any other questions, post them now. We can give it a minute, but otherwise that's the end of the questions in the chat. And if anyone has questions after this that come up, please feel free to email those in. A request for including a 3-month look ahead on the implementation plans. There we go.
We'll work to do that. We're rapidly coming up at the end of some major milestones just in terms of the organization, and it's not too much further out. But 3 months ahead is the end of the calendar year and the launch of the new organization. But certainly understand the desire to know more about the major milestones. So we'll see what we can do to put forward a bit of a schedule for you.
Okay. With that, I don't see any other new questions. One more. Some people are inquiring about, is it SSPC PCI equivalent to NACE CIP?
So that's a really interesting question, right? So that is one of the things the team is doing, is really evaluating not only what is the content of the two certification or the two education programs, but also what do the certification exams and processes test for. I would say today the chances are that there are differences between the two of them. I'm not an expert. We got teams that are working on that, but part of the process that we've asked each of the teams to go through is to really take the time to understand both programs thoroughly and identify where they're the same and where they're different. And that's not just about certification, that's about every aspect of what we do. And so that work's happening right now. That's, remember, these teams have been together for 3 or 4 weeks. The first part of that is getting to know each other, setting a work plan, getting materials and resources available. And they're just now starting into really sitting down and doing the necessary comparisons of the programs. So my guess is there are differences, and we'll have to find a way to deal with that and address that.
Okay. So now we have a lot of questions coming in.
Yeah, you announced last call, and they started streaming in.
Yes. So question about our conferences, any feeling yet how long the 2 conferences will continue, or as they're already scheduled out far in advance?
Our conferences team are working very quickly to integrate the 2. 1, because of the merger, 2, because of the impact of COVID-19. Right now, our plan is to have 2 conferences in 2021. It's too late if we are able to have conferences. And again, that's somewhat at the mercy of what happens with COVID-19. But for 2021, we would have both conferences. We are negotiating and working with convention centers and hotels and city groups to see if we can't merge the 2 together as quickly as possible, and good progress is being made. So stay tuned. It's going to take a while. You probably won't have an answer before next year, but we are working to merge into 1 conference as quickly as possible.
Okay. And then what will be the entity to obtain certifications? Is it NACE or SSPC?
It is neither. It will be New Org.
At some stage,
right,
there will be a transition to certifications under the new organization. But again, this is not binary. It's this today and that tomorrow. There will be a transition plan timeline laid out for how that happens. But eventually you would renew certification under the new organization.
All right. Is the integration team or SSPC or NACE considering the negative economic impact on individual membership and certification fees as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global economy without putting stress on members in the strategies or our plan?
I would say yes. I'm not sure how to answer that question, but yes, the impact of COVID-19 on our members, our customers, the companies and the individuals, as well as NACE and SSPC, quite frankly. We've had our own set of stress through this process. So we are working hard to make it to make our products and programs as accessible and affordable as we possibly can.
Okay. And if anyone's having CIP 3 appear, do they need to reevaluate or do anything differently with the exam process? Is there any change there?
I don't think we know enough at this point. It's too early.
Okay. And then there's a suggestion here. Here we go. Do you recommend everyone keep their certifications current in the interim?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then will the cost of certification, will it be reduced or the same? Will it change?
It's probably too early to tell. I mean, one of the things we are operating under is to do no harm to the members. So I think we're going to do everything we can to manage those costs, but again, it's too early to tell. I don't see any reason why the costs should change or will change.
Okay. Would New Org consider future growth through a similar M&A process to what we're doing now? For example, absorbing or merging with other organizations with significant mission overlap?
I'll take that one. I'm not sure this is the time and place to be asking about doing this again, because I think all of us are feeling the workload right now. But yes, we would. One of the things that's happening, I think, going to happen across industry and therefore across associations is the need to marshal and control and use resources wisely. And so I do think there will be some opportunities in the future for other organizations to join us or for us to join other organizations to better effectively serve our members in industry. And there have been some very, very high level, I don't want to give any implication that anything has been done or decided or set, but there are some groups that have talked to us and we've talked to them and said, we get out the other side, there may make more sense to bring us together. Industry and you as members need the most efficient way to access the resources you can get, and having to work with multiple organizations is not the best. Elisa, there was one you missed, and I actually would like to address it. It had to do with involving the academia community in the organization. That is something we are very focused on, and frankly don't believe that in the past NACE or SSPC has done as well as it could have. And we're taking advantage of the merger to really strengthen that area, taking some of the resources that in the past we would have been duplicating the use of and making them available to serve what we're calling the pre-professional community. So it approaches the universities, but even younger than the universities, the pre-university stage, but also those people who teach them, the researchers, the professors, the university professors, the instructors, to give them more resources. So we've actually got a business plan that's being developed as part of the new org that addresses specifically into that community. I think that's an important community that we can do a lot better at serving and take advantage of the merger to make that happen.
Okay. And then last,
I have one. Somebody just fed me some information and from our staff. Back to the question about COVID. One of the things that has happened on the NACE side, if you are carrying a NACE certification, is we are extending grace periods for certifications. If for some reason you've lost your job or you're unemployed or you're struggling financially. So what I would tell anybody, and I think it would be the same on the SSPC side, if you're in a situation where COVID has negatively impacted you, reach out to us because there are programs and things that we can make available to help with that. And I'm being told, yeah, even our cost of our education programs have been reduced and we're offering scholarships. So there are a lot of programs out there for those who have a need.
Okay, and then one other inquiry about costs. How can costs not go up dramatically related to free downloads for members, if that'll be curtailed? Presumably for standards.
I think what was touched on is that the membership model as individual members and or the corporate structure will be, we'll have different tiers to enable, I think what Bob said earlier, which is to get the benefits that you think are valuable to you at whatever level that might be. So that's being discussed actively, and proposals will be forthcoming to us as the transition team to review and approve what we think is the right direction forward.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Let's see, unless anyone has any other questions, send them in now. Otherwise, that's everything. Please keep our NACE numbers intact. The lower the number, the longer others know we've been around. Yeah, how to maintain your
seniority number, I guess, for lack of a better term, your certification number. That'll be part of the process. Well, that does bring us to the top of the hour. Great feedback, great questions. You know, also open to feedback about the session themselves. If there's too much content, you want more time for question and answers, that's feedback that we can take and adjust either the length of the webinars, the length of the town halls, or adjust the length of the content that's that's presented. So nothing sacred to the team.
Prezados amigos, obrigado por participar da live do CTQFF. Encerramos aqui agora a transmissão. Muito obrigado mais uma vez pela presença de todos e pelo apoio que estamos recebendo. Um grande abraço a todos.